Hello, aspirants. This session is majorly for you all who are preparing for UPSC examinations. This session is specially made for you all who are preparing for UPSC examinations. In this session, we are trying to give you details about the examination pattern, the myths associated with this exam, who all can prepare for this exam, what is the right approach to prepare for this exam. I hope we'll be able to answer all those questions you already have in your mind. We have with us General Studies expert Deepika Magam. Hello, ma'am. Very pleased to have you in this session. My pleasure. Ma'am, in this session, we are, like I already said, we are going to talk majorly about UPSC civil service examinations. So, first, let us talk a little bit about the exam pattern.
Civil services is basically an exam conducted by UPSC, Public Service Commission of the Union. And this exam, CSE is one of the exams conducted by UPSC. There are many other exams that UPSC holds, but CSE is considered as the most prestigious, by far the most prestigious and toughest exam in India. Basically, because it basically recruits people to the most visible services, that is, your district collector and your commissioner of police or your ASP, SP of the district, and so on. So this exam basically has three stages. The first one is called as preliminary stage, in which you have MCQ based questions. There are two papers. One is called as general studies, where you are asked 100 questions, and the other is called CSAT, which is basically about logical reasoning, mental ability, comprehensive skills, and so on. Now, in these two papers, if you qualify, then the next stage that you reach is the mains exam. Basically, prelims is a qualifying exam. What I mean by qualifying exam is whatever marks you get in prelims, these marks will not be considered for your overall ranking. It is just like a entry to write mains. Now, mains has two qualifying papers. One will be English and the other will be any regional language. Then you will have five common papers, which we call as general studies, and two papers on a single optional. You have to choose one subject as your optional, and you'll have two papers on that. So in all, mains will have nine papers, out of which for your final score they are going to cover only they are going to consider only seven papers. Having said this, if you don't clear the language papers, the others will not be evaluated. That is the reason we call the language papers as the qualifying papers. And then the last stage of the exam is called as personality test. It is usually, in general parlance, we call it as interview, but it is not an interview. It is a personality test because they try to assess you as a person. It is not about your intelligence. Your intelligence is already tested in mains. Now they want to know what are you as a person? How do you react to a particular situation? What opinions do you frame about things that happen around you? What is your background? How vulnerable or how strong you are? How suitable you are for this job? That is what they test in the personality test. Your final ranking, your final result will be based on your performance in the mains and the interview. This is the overall pattern, and these exams are spread across the year. You'll have prelims in May usually, then followed by mains in September, October, interviews from February, March, and your final result will come again in May before your next prelims. This is how it is.
So, how's the competition, ma'am? How many aspirants roughly are attempting to give this exam every year?
Usually, see, basically, we have to understand that any person who has a graduation degree within a age limit, within a age bracket of 21 to 32, if it is an OC, will be eligible to write the test with a cap on the number of attempts. So when I say any graduate, it includes open degree graduation certificate, it includes recognized foreign universities, deemed universities, and everything. This is important because this helps you understand that there is a very huge amount of population which is actually eligible for the test. Likewise, the number of applications that are filed with UPSC every year are nearly 8 to 10 lakhs, in which around 4 lakhs actually attempt the prelims exam. However, as far as we understand the market and the students, we understand that there are around 1 lakh aspirants who are very serious. So, if I have to put it simple, it is that 1 lakh, 1.25 lakh students in amongst whom we have this entire competition. Otherwise, for the sake of applications and all, it will be 8 lakhs. The number of people attempting will be 4 lakhs.
Madam, there are many students who are faring better in their academics. They
Yeah.
could be toppers in their academics, but they're not able to get through civil service examination. Why do you think it happens?
What is required for civil services is very different from what you require for your graduation exams. Basically, here you have to understand the difference between civil services exam and graduation. See, what happens in your graduation is your subject is limited. You have only a few books to read. In many cases, the teachers give you a set of questions. You read them, you by heart them, you just go reproduce it in the paper, and it is the number of papers that you write on the basis of which you actually get marks, and you actually stick to what your teacher teaches. You don't have to think a lot, you don't have to analyze a lot and all that. So for graduation you need people who are very good with sitting and reading. Okay, I am not undermining people who top, but I'm basically telling you that is a prerequisite. But for civil services, it is not about sitting and reading. It is about understanding the need of the exam, the ability to mold your answer to the question that is asked. Because on a single topic, they can ask you a question from any dimension. If you take a small topic like corruption, there can be a question on corruption in society, there can be a question on corruption in polity, asking you about the laws. Economy also, there can be a question, ethical question can be raised on corruption. So there are so many dimensions, facets to a topic, and you can expect a question to be asked anywhere. And also you have to realize that in one paper of general studies you have two three subjects. You have geography, history, society in paper 1. A student should be able to switch his mind from one subject to the other. Now, why am I telling all this? Because for all this you need a lot of practice. So what clicks in civil services is not your intelligence. It is basically about you as a person, your persistence, how persuasive you are towards the exam, how patient you are, how right is your strategy, how much of effort in terms of not just reading but also practice you're putting. All these things will actually determine your success. It is more about your attitude, your approach towards the exam rather than intelligence. That will help you crack the exam. That is the reason you will not find the toppers cracking it. You'll find those people who are very persistent cracking it actually.
We see students from science backgrounds, technical backgrounds, and also arts graduates who are preparing for civil services. And in civil services examinations, like you said, general studies has all arts subjects. It has geography, history, polity, and economy. So, do you think these arts graduates will have an edge over the technical graduates?
See, I look at it like this. If you go through the result over the last few years, it's surprising, but we have seen more technical graduates cracking the exam in comparison with the social sciences. However, an analysis for this is, the number of takers for social sciences, especially in South India, are considerably less when compared to North India. Having said that, the fact also remains that when I read in graduation a social science subject, I am more preparing on a theoretical perspective. But when it comes to civil services, it is more a practical perspective that you have to write. In graduation, you just read the theory and reproduce it. But in civil services, you can't read the theory and just reproduce it. You have to relate the theory to the current happenings around you. You should be able to quote a thinker, even if in your option, you should be able to quote a thinker and relate him to a current situation that is happening around you. For this, you need application of knowledge. And this application, I find it easier in a person who does not come with this subjective background, because he's like a white paper. If you ask me about a BTech student, I'll say he's like a white paper. I can just help him to prepare for the exam, what is required for the exam. He just prepares from that perspective. He goes, writes his exam, he clears, and he moves
So
off.
he'll be programmed to read the subject in
the
exam perspective.
Exactly. But what happens with a BA student or somebody is they come with a dosage. If you are able to mold that knowledge to the exam requirements, then nothing like it becomes very easy for you because you have a background and you've studied that. But if you're not able to mold yourself to the requirements of the exam, there it is a problem. So, it totally depends. I would actually say that never take a subject in graduation because you think it will be useful for civil services. Always choose a graduation option which will help you to have an alternative career just in case you are not able to crack civils, and that should be out of your interest. I am not saying that engineering will give you an alternative career. There is no guarantee of that. But if you are not interested, in something, please don't pursue it. Pursue something that will give you a career perspective, because tomorrow if you're not able to make in civil, see, one thing that everybody should realize is, all said and done, there are only 600 to 1000 posts in civils every year, and there is a heavy competition. For one post, you have nearly 1000 or 1500 serious aspirants fighting for it. Aspirants who have given up on everything and just preparing for it. In such tough situation, what if I don't clear? We all want you to clear, but what if I don't clear? There should always be a plan B, and your graduation will serve the purpose of plan B. That is the reason you should be very careful in choosing your graduation. You should not think about its utility to civils. You should rather think about its utility as an alternative, or as a cushion to fall back on in case you don't crack civil services.
Talking about paper 2 in prelims, it is CSAT. It has basically quantitative aptitude, reasoning, and English language.
Right.
So, do you think how is the toughness level in this exam?
See, basically, CSAT is a qualifying paper. What I mean by qualifying paper is, out of 200 marks, if you get 66 marks in CSAT, that means you have cleared. Okay? Only after your CSAT exam is evaluated, those people who clear CSAT, as in get 66 marks, these people's general studies paper will be evaluated, and your final score will be based on your general studies preparation. So when I say it is a qualifying paper, you should be prepared to the extent of clearing it. If you are a maths student, just solve about 20 papers, CSAT papers, model papers, one in a day. That will help you. If you're not a maths background student, then you please start preparing 2.5 months before the exam. Why am I specifying this time is, maths is a subject that you need to practice, be it logical reasoning, quantitative aptitude, whatever it is. The practice should be before your exam. You practice it 6 months before the exam and leave it before the exam. It will not be of no use. So you can start working on CSAT 2.5 months before, just in case you're not good with maths. The same applies to English, because the comprehensions you given in CSAT are of a complex level. And if you're from a rural background, you think you're not able to do it, it's better you start practicing it 2.5 to 3 months before. But you always should keep one thing in mind: it is a qualifying paper, and you should not go overboard with it. When you go overboard with it, you tend to neglect the general studies. That should not happen.
And coming back to general studies in prelims, the subject is really vast. So, do you think there is a need for coaching?
See, basically, the idea behind coaching is, it makes your preparation more time bound. Um, Firstly, let me clarify this. Without coaching, also, you can crack civil services. There are people who have done it without coaching. But the problem is, you might take much more time to crack the exam if you don't take coaching when compared to a person who's taking coaching. The logic here is simple. Now, when you come to me for a subject, I read 10 subjects and I explain. I read 10 books for that subject and I explain. So, you save your time of going through these 10 books because I'm explaining it. The other thing is, you need somebody to tell you what is the right approach to a subject. It is very, very important that you understand what is the right method of reading a subject. You cannot apply the same method to polity and science and technology. They are two subjects altogether different. So you should understand how to read a subject, and in that, a teacher will be able to guide you better. Okay, and it is time saving, because, as I said earlier, you don't have to spend too much of time in resourcing information. They are already doing it for you. It is more systematic, because they first run 2 subjects or 3 subjects. Ideally, an institution which does not teach more than 4 or 6 hours, because of late what is happening is they make you sit in the class from morning 8 to evening 5, 6, 7, 8. If you're listening to classes for 10, 12 hours, I mean, your mind stops functioning. Beyond that, you can't read. The institute should manage it in such a way that they have 4 to 6 hours of classes, and the rest of the time the students are at their are free to revise what has been taught. So if at all that can be worked out for a student, nothing like it. It saves a lot of time. There will be a systematic method to prepare. But more than all these things, what matters is somebody to guide, somebody to tell you whether you are right or wrong. Many students have this experience that they tried preparing for civil services, but unfortunately they could not, by the time they realized what is right, what is wrong, they might have lost 3, 4 attempts. The reason why this happens is there's nobody to tell them what is right, what is wrong. So they have to invent the wheel on their own. But having a mentor, having a person to guide, having somebody who will be, responsible for your preparation, mold you to the exam, will really help you, because it saves you a lot of time, a lot of frustrations that you experience during the course of the preparation. And it is also important for your confidence. Somebody should be there to tell you whether you're going in the right path or not. That is where coaching can really help.
And you already said 2 points, that mentoring is very important at personal level. You also said that it is ideal to have 4 to 6 hours session in the coaching center, and then they need to go back and revise. What are the other criteria they need to take care while choosing a coaching center?
See, it is like this, no? Whenever I talk about coaching, for that matter, whenever somebody tells you prepare for civil services or I'm preparing for civil services, immediately they are flooded with a number of suggestions saying that this institute is good, that institute is good, you have to go there, here, and all. But my primary question is, what is the basis to conclude that an institute is good? Just because the institute claims that it got so many ranks in a year, is that a parameter to measure an institute's performance? Because if you open the Hindu newspaper the day after the results is announced, the same person, the same rank is claimed by every institute in that city. How is it that one person had taken coaching in so many institutes? So this is one small logic I would like all parents to think about, all aspirants to think about, as to whether the parameter necessarily should be the result. Because according to me, you have to choose an institute where you have limited strength, where you are confident that you will be guided ably. Because the logic is simple. If I have one batch of 100 students and I run only two batches, I have around 200 students. I'll be able to focus on each and every student personally. I'll know who is doing what at what level, who is capable of what. I'll be able to strategize their preparation, because you don't have a benchmark strategy here. You have to do it according to the students' abilities and disabilities. So that I'm capable of. But imagine I have a classroom of 500 students and I'm running 10 batches, or for that matter, I have a classroom of 100 students and running 10 batches. I'll not be able to cater that time. As far as the subject is concerned, see, we all teach the same subject and we all more or less teach in the same manner. Maybe somebody is more expressive and simple, somebody is more complex, but everybody is teaching the same subject. The real difference a coaching center can make in your life is mentoring, where they tell you, they guide you at every level, they tell you that this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're not supposed to do. And they should give you the confidence that you can come up with your silliest doubt to the teacher or the person who is responsible there, and she or he is able to sort it out. That kind of mentoring is essential, because my personal experience has been, I've seen students fumbling in the last stages of preparation and not clearing the exam because of small bottlenecks. But once the bottlenecks were discussed and we had a talk and we were able to decode the problem, I found that they could actually crack the exam. Then I realized that it is not just the subject that the students require. It is along with the subject they definitely need personal guidance, and that is where a coaching center becomes very essential. So please choose a coaching center on the basis of the strength, the accessibility to the teacher. Are you confident that he or she will stand? Is there somebody in the institute who is taking the responsibility for your preparation? See, nobody will guarantee you a job. If you come to me, I'll also not guarantee you a job, because ultimately I am not taking the exam, you're taking the exam. It is going to be your effort, but it is going to be my direction towards your effort. I am going to mold that effort towards you cracking the exam. So basically, it is about that. Are you getting somebody to mold you? Ultimately, whether you succeed or not, there are a lot of factors. But is there somebody who will mold you? Is there somebody who's keeping track of your preparation, telling you what is right and what is wrong? This should be a very important criteria while choosing your coaching center. So this is what I feel that should be the criteria. Also, taking coaching, preparing and all, at the end of the day when they're going and sitting in the examination hall, what they do in those 3 hours matters. That if they're going to give the mains exam or they're not going to give the mains exam. Exactly. That will decide the factor. So in this 3 hours, they could be knowing answers for few questions, and they may not be knowing answer for few questions, and they could be doubtful about few questions. Because there is a negative marking, how they are supposed to
decide?
See, basically, what you said is partially right, but I think that coaching also includes the fact that you train your students to write the exam. For example, students who have prepared for civil services or who have written MCQs will definitely agree with this point of mine that they lose at least 4 to 5 marks by marking wrong answers in the OMR. It is as simple as that. You're marking wrong answers in the OMR and you're losing marks. So, what we do is we actually give them OMR sheets, we make them mark it whenever they have a practice test. That is one method of ensuring that they are not going wrong. The second thing is repeatedly we tell them to read the question carefully. They make mistakes by not reading the question carefully. They don't read till the end of the sentence. They read halfway or 70% of the sentence and they feel that it is right and they mark it right. But towards the end, because we have statement based questions, towards the end there will be one mistake, that deliberate wrong that is given in the sentence to make the whole sentence wrong. And that is where you lose mark. So, in the coaching center, when you're writing the exam, there should be somebody telling you that you should read the question carefully, you should be marking the right answer in the OMR sheet. These things are very, very crucial for your preparation. And before going to the exam hall also, there are certain directions that we give. We ask them not to do too much of guesswork, 70-75 questions decently, or up to 80 questions, depending on how many you are sure of and how many you are not sure of. So these are certain things that have to be kept in mind. So I believe basically that a student can be trained for those 3 hours of the exam also. 75% of the training can be done outside. 25% can be managed, because this 75% will give you the confidence to manage that 25%.
So you mean to say this practice will definitely help them in their judgment?
Undoubtedly, they have to practice. The more you practice, the better. In fact, there is a method of practicing. Exam is not just about reading. Exam is about reading, completely, holistically approaching the exam, the syllabus, and then practice. Practice is an essential part. You can't make yourself a dustbin where you're going to dump all the knowledge without knowing whether you're able to apply it or not. Once you start acquiring knowledge, it is equally important that you start practicing. And there are so many test series, there are so many things offered in the market, and I feel that students are wasting a lot of money and time buying all these things initially. I feel that they should first practice previous year question papers. Only when they practice previous year question papers, then they should start thinking of a test series, because nobody can give you that kind of practice that a previous year question paper can give. You get area wise, topic wise segregated previous year question papers. First start practicing the prelims part, then move on to practice the mains part. This should be the approach actually.
Students are actually dumping a lot of resources into their minds because there are too many resources, too many textbooks, and online material available at the moment. So, how do you think students should sort out the material when prepare for the exam?
See, basically, for every subject, there will be 2 or 3 standard textbooks which are usually preferred. I am talking about a textbook. So the first thing that a student should do is he should identify for which subject, which textbook or which source should be taken. And once they identify these sources, they should start reading these sources. Any current updates should be made from the newspaper. We usually ask them to read the Hindu and the Indian Express. The Hindu, because it is synonymous with civil services. Even a person who does not know anything about civils will ask you, are you reading Hindu? If you say that you're preparing for civils. So Hindu is a must. Indian Express, because you need another perception. In Hindu, at times there is a left basis bias in the editorial, so we ask them to read Indian Express as well. So they have to approach both Hindu and the Indian Express while reading for the exam, and they have to update. And most importantly, the PIB. PIB gives you almost 80% of the current information related to the government. So these sources are good enough if you properly utilize them for your updates. You don't need a lot of information. And then you have various government websites, intergovernmental organization websites that are good enough, but definitely not Wikipedia, because this authentication of the source is very essential. When you take a stand in the mains exam, you should be able to substantiate it with a very authentic source. You have to mention the source, only then you get your marks. And data is also equally important. If you quote data in the mains, you get more marks, and that data also should come from the government. That is the reason, please rely more on government information.
We basically see students going around shops getting material from from so and so coaching center, so and so institute, so and so publication. So you mean to say this doubling up and multiplying of information is unnecessary? Rely on 2 to 3 standard books. That's what you say.
Exactly, because even those two to three standard books, what practically happens is, see, we ask you to read NCRT. Take my subject for example, polity. I ask you to read NCRTs. Then I ask you to read, Subhash Kashyap or D.D. Basu, okay, or Lakshmi Kant, which obviously students would read. So when I'm asking you to read about this is nearly 6 of NCRT books and 2 3 textbooks, 9 10 books for polity. First time you read all the 9 10 books, do you think every time you revise you will read all the 9 10 books? It is a humongous task. So what I say is, you have to make a concise notes of your own. You have to have one book where everything is neatly listed out. If you're taking coaching from somebody, for example, if it is my class, I ask my students to take a printout of the handouts that I share. I share handouts, the printed material. Then I ask them to add up whatever is they find extra in any of the books there itself, to write it there in point form and keep it there. Whenever there is a current update also, you keep adding in the same notebook. So ultimately for polity, you will have only one book where all the details are given and the revision becomes very, very easy. And when you organize your information so systematically, it is very obvious that you're going to get it out this in the same manner in your mains. So this will help you a lot in your exam. In fact, I would say that you have to get into notes making. It should be a very concise notes and it should be integrated with current affairs. I can beyond a doubt say that if a student is maintaining a separate current affairs notes, he will 90% not get the time to go through that. It is impossible. And the other thing that we have to realize is, in UPSC, they do not ask current affairs separately and subject separately. They integrate both current affairs and backgrounders and ask. For that, integrating at the preparation level is very important. Then you will be able to cover it in a holistic manner. So that is the reason, have your notes ready. Keep adding papers into it. You can always get them spiral banded. Keep adding papers. Whenever there is a new ordinance, add that information under Article 123. Whenever there is a joint sitting or something held in Parliament, or a judicial judgment by the court on a fundamental right, add it near the fundamental right where you have all the notes, so that tomorrow even if they ask, you will be able to give the latest update with regard to that, and that is where you score more than others.
And just before the exam, they're all sorted with all information at one place. I think that should help them.
That will actually help them a lot. They will be much more confident. Their presentation will improve to the power of 100 times. In terms of the answer writing, their confidence level will also be a different thing altogether, because you've worked on it. And when you write with your own hand, you tend to remember more. It is
and economy is also a dynamic subject, just like polity. So the same approach can also be applied to.
It should be applied. It should be applied to all the subjects. In fact, you should have your own notes, because towards the end, before the exam, it is not possible to go through this thick textbooks, 3 4 textbooks for each subject. Your confidence takes a beating there itself.
And coming up to mains examination, we have general studies papers and then we have an optional. There are some new additions to general studies papers like ethics, which is not something like academically structured course and you read it and you give it. There is something you need to apply by yourself. So what kind of approach and mindset the aspirant need to have to answer questions in that segment?
Frankly, I teach ethics, and ethics I think is a very interesting area. If you are a little flexible and very rational, you need to be, if I have to put it in one word, we need people with common sense to understand ethics. You don't need rocket science, you don't need great intelligence. It is simple common sense that makes ethics very easy. And most importantly, along with common sense, you need the flexibility to accept the other point of view. So this is what you require for ethics. Ethics is very easy and it is very scoring as well. When you are able to understand the basic terminology, like they ask, we all talk about, even without thinking, we say attitude is everything, you need to have the right kind of aptitude. But we never sit down to understand what is attitude, what is aptitude, in what context do you use it. This subject teaches you all that. It teaches you the meaning of what is morals, what is values. They say, my values don't allow me to do this, but what do you mean by a value? My ethical base is not like that, but what is ethics according to you? He's very immoral. What do you mean by immorality? So, all these things the ethics paper teaches you. It is all simple words that we use in our day to day lives without thinking. Ethics makes you to think and understand what they mean. And ethics gives you a scope to quote a lot of day to day examples. Like in COVID times, we have seen some phenomenal Good Samaritan work by commoners as well as officers. We have seen some deteriorating conditions. So, both of these will be used to understand ethics from a very practical sense. This also comes as a part of ethics. So, ethics is a subject which is interesting because it is related to your day to day life, which is related to your the words that you use in your day-to-day life, and you have to understand the happenings around. Now, how do you approach ethics? First, read the syllabus carefully, identify the key words in the syllabus. As I said, morality will be there, emotional intelligence is there, values is there. We talk about probity, we talk about good governance, corporate governance, work culture. First, define all these words. What do you mean by all these words? Then you start collecting the characteristics of these words. For example, you talk about political attitude, you talk about social attitude. So, what is social attitude? What is political attitude? What are the parameters, differences between these terms? Then you try to relate. When I read something in the newspaper, I have to relate it to an ethical perspective. I can recollect an example of a northeast boy who ran over a chicken in a hen in front of his house, and he took the hen and went running to the hospital, begging, pleading the doctor to save the hen with all the pocket money he had. This is a very funny incident, but if you look at it from an ethical perspective, it actually talks volumes about the upbringing of the child.
Correct.
Because when you today in today's world, you hit a human being and he's dying on the road, nobody bothers. But that boy was so concerned about a hen which he ran over accidentally by his bicycle. This talks volumes about his value system. And you have a topic called role of family in inculcating values in individuals. So this is where you quote this as an example. That is how you have to integrate examples into your ethics paper. It is not philosophy. It is simple common sense, rationality, and an eye for detail to what is happening around you from a very moral ground. You're not judging it from what a legal aspect. You're judging it from a moral ground of what is right and what is wrong. That is what is required for ethics.
I think this will prepare the aspirant to be a good administrator.
That's the reason why it has been, it increases empathy in you. In fact, the entire syllabus is like that. You have an area called Society and Social Justice where we teach about problems faced by different sections of society like women, children, homosexuals, senior citizens. I mean, that area when you teach, when you talk about the causes of a problem, what kind of policies the government is making, how effective are these policies, it gives a very good insight into the social ethos of our country. I mean, it actually changes your perception completely towards that problem. That is the reason why we say that if you prepare for civil services, you crack it or not, but you become a very informed citizen. All this information will definitely make you a better person.
And ma'am, talking about mains examination again, you earlier told us that the approach that they have towards the approach towards each subject for this examination is different. It is not like regular academics. So when an aspirant is preparing for mains examination, with what approach they are supposed to answer the questions?
See, first thing that they have to understand is the syllabus, the question that is asked, syllabus, and you have to, for every topic, you have to have a very holistic approach. For example, if you have an event, you have to understand why this incident is happening. You have protests in America right now. What is the incident? What is the background? What is the racial problem that they have? What were the safeguards that American Constitution has provided towards this racial problem? Today, what happened? What will be the implications of this on the country in future, on the upcoming presidential elections? So, this is how you have to look at a problem, a very holistic approach. approach. And at that same time, in this holistic approach, you have to minimize your words. You cannot elaborate and write a lengthy story, because in mains you have to answer say about 15 to 18 questions in a span of 180 minutes. So barely 9 or 10 minutes per question, and you have to complete it in 250 words, otherwise you'll not finish the paper. If you don't finish the paper, you will not get marks, because no matter how well you write your answer, the ultimate mark that you're going to get is 6 out of 10. They will not give you beyond that. So the logic here is you have to complete the entire paper to be sure that you'll crack your mains, you'll clear your mains. Therefore, this kind of preparation is required. And when you're presenting also, see, they ask you for your opinion. It does not mean that your opinion is based on your rigid beliefs. You should never get your affiliations to anything into the exam. A civil servant is expected to be very balanced. Imagine a collector getting onto the podium, onto the stage, and talking about caste, religion, or region. You will not like it, because he's collector and you expect him to be neutral. Likewise, when you are an aspirant, as an examiner, I expect you to take a neutral stand. I don't expect you to support somebody blindly. So, when you're writing something, there should be a rationale behind it, and there should be a source that supports your viewpoint. Quote a committee, for example, we say that there should not be any regulation, an external regulation on the press. When I'm writing this, I will quote the Levison report. The Levison committee had actually told that. It was appointed in UK. So I'll say that as quoted by or as concluded by the Levison committee, press should self-regulate and should not be regulated by an external source. Like this, if you're able to write, you'll score more marks. And when you're asked to critically analyze something, you should not be critically analyzing it and giving a very negative picture. No matter how negative something is, you will find something positive in it. Start with the positive aspect of it and then write about how it can be improved. This is good, but this can be better. Don't say this is terrible, this is worse, this is, because that exposes a very pessimistic attitude in you. And that is not what we want from our bureaucrats. So, you should have constructive criticism, you should have a positive way of looking at things. If you see a bureaucrat talk in the news or in the press to the press, you will never find him getting too emotional. There will be no far-fetched statements. They are very, very diplomatic. They are very cut out. That kind of analysis is required for the exam.
Which means we should not be carried away by our own ideologies or our own views.
Definitely not. It should be more about a balanced approach. You have to have a holistic approach. You have to look at all the sides before you draw a conclusion.
And there are many working professionals also who are aspiring to be civil servants. They could be doing some other jobs. So, what kind of approach they need to follow to crack this exam?
In fact, if you notice the result, more than 50% of the students who crack the exam are the ones who are already working. I believe that people who are working are more committed to the exam than people who are preparing full time. Because what happens is, if I'm preparing full time, there will be a lot of procrastination. I can do it today, I can do it tomorrow. Postponement business is more. But when you talk about a working professional, his time is very, very limited and restricted. And he has to complete it within the time he has. He cannot go beyond it and try to complete it. That is where he tries to get the maximum out of the minimum time he has. But having said this, a working professional should be very clear about his preparation. He should be very clear about the syllabus. He should be very practical about the time available and how well he can use it for his exam. To start off with, he should actually pick up 1 or 2 subjects depending on his time. Set timelines, try to finish them within that timeline. More number of revisions. This should be the approach for a working professional. And there should be only 2 things in his or her life. One is his work, and the second should be the exam. There will be no scope whatsoever for any third activity if you're a working professional.
So they need to be really focused.
Focus is
about
more
the
important.
exam. Students who've been, who've been studying in their regional language, their own regional language, they will not have resources in regional language. Basically, they'll need to have. They're supposed to study only in English. They're supposed to understand it and then apply it in mains. So don't you think this becomes a tough job for them?
See, actually, we are at a stage in India where we have these semi-regional language studied students. Matlab, till their 10th or inter, they must have studied in their regional language. Their inter graduation or graduation, they must have done it in English. So they are, firstly, they are not sure of whether they should appear in English or regional language. For these students, what I usually suggest is let them first try to understand it in English. If they are able to follow English, if they write something and I read, I'll be in a position to tell whether they will be able to do it in English or not. If they are able to do it in English, if they are grammatically correct, we don't need flamboyant English for civil services. You don't need to have a very good language or very eloquent language. You need to be expressive and grammatically correct. If you have the grammar in place, developing English is not a big deal. That is okay for you if you have that in place. If you still think that I don't have it in place, then you can continue preparing in your regional language, but you will not find sources for some subjects, some areas like ethics, like internal security, international relations, for which you have to make your own notes by reading English notes and write it in your own language. This actually is an advantage for them because when I'm reading something, translating it in my own language and putting it on the paper, 110% I tend to remember it better. And this will make me more organized for my exam. In fact, it will contribute much more to my exam. So that way, it is definitely an advantage to them.
And these people going to a properly structured coaching class also can help them.
Undoubtedly, it helps them because you have a lot of time and disposal. In coaching, another thing that will really help is the peers. If you're left in isolation, you don't know where you stand, you don't know what you're doing, you're just doing your job. But if you have your peers around and you get enter into competition, it should be healthy, of course. You enter into competition, you see others also reading, you'll be able to compare yourself. So that way also, it is good to have coaching.
When we talk about coaching, there is this very popular notion in our country that whoever goes to Delhi will
Yes.
turn out to be a serious aspirant, will turn out to be a civil servant one day. But there are students from other states and people who are taking coaching in other places. They are also cracking the exam. So why do you think this notion has come up, and is there any authenticity connected to this?
See, actually, it is like this. Maybe there was a time when Delhi developed as a hub for coaching centers, but the reality is, if from A place 10,000 people are writing and 50 people crack the exam, it is okay. But imagine from a B place, 1,000 people are writing and 20 people crack the exam. I say that B place is much greater than A place. So basically, what happens is in Delhi, the number of students who go there is more. Therefore, you have high result. It is simple logic there. Having said this, the problem with Delhi is you have too many students in the class. It is a very good corporate model where you have 500 to 600 students made to sit in one class. The teacher teaches, the students listen, but frankly, we don't know what they are able to follow. How personal mentorship is beyond doubt because you will not be able to get access, and practically even for a teacher, how many students will she manage when I have so many batches? And the second thing is the weather in Delhi is very harsh. Many people are not able to adjust to the weather, come back. We have seen cases like that also. And it is undoubtedly very costly. The reality is, in Delhi, you have teachers from all over the country going and teaching. I mean, sizable number of teachers are also from the Telugu speaking states. So we cannot say that Delhi is the best just because it has more results, which is because of more number of students. There are good alternatives developing. You have Hyderabad developing as a hub. Madras is developing, Bangalore is developing. So we do have other hubs also developing. I would specifically talk about Hyderabad not just because I belong to that place, but I will talk about it because of two reasons. One is the climatic conditions in Hyderabad are very, very friendly. You don't have extremities in weather. The second thing is it is a very safe city and it is comparatively a very economic city. You find accommodation and decent accommodation uh, at a minimum price with all kinds of food available. It's not that because it is in South India you only get idli and sambar. In fact, I don't know if people are aware, Hyderabad is a very cosmopolitan city. You have people from all over the country settled in Hyderabad to the extent that you have a Gujarati gully, you have a Sindhi colony. So you have people from all over India, and that is the reason you find everything from momos to paratas. Everything is available in Hyderabad. You will not face a food problem. It is easier to settle, and of course there are many coaching centers which are picking up. They have less strength, they will be able to focus on you better, cater to you better. So you have hubs developing. It's not that you should depend on Delhi only.
Yes, and we see there are a lot of coaching centers also coming up, and a lot of students also in Hyderabad right now taking coaching from different parts of India. And there are many students who are preparing for civil services and who are focused only on civil services. So, do you think this approach will not work out for other competitive exams, or you think it works out?
See, basically, if you're preparing for civil services, generally what happens is if a student decides that he wants to prepare for civil services, he does not want to think of anything else. I say it is good, but I have a practical question. You don't want to think about anything else, but how will you ensure that you are having the right kind of practice for your exam? How will you ensure that you will be able to, you're able to check your preparation? I would say prepare for civil services. Don't deviate, but write every exam for which you're eligible, every government exam for which you're eligible. The reason why I'm telling this is first thing is I will get a real time practice of different tests. Nobody, no institute can give you a real time practice of taking the OMR sheet, filling it, writing it under invigilators and all that. That is the first advantage. Second is you know the questioning pattern. How is it varying from exam to exam? Are you able to apply the knowledge you have gained over the period of time? That is the second advantage. And the third very important advantage is if at all you crack the exam, you have a job in hand. You will not have that pressure from your peers or yourself or your family to settle down faster. If it is a girl, they'll ask her to get married. If it is a boy, they say you're not doing anything. 2 years pass, 3 years pass, and somewhere the boys or the girls' confidence starts taking a beating. This will not happen because you've cracked an exam. For your people also, they will start trusting you because they feel that Arey bhai, she could do this. She will also be able to do that. That is the first thing. And the second thing is, you will be confident because success brings in more success. If you succeed in one exam, you'll be raring to go. That will fill in so much of zeal in you that you want to go ahead, work more hard, and go to a greater height. That is the reason why always write all competitive exams for which you are eligible. Don't read anything extra. What you're reading for civil services, just apply that and write. You're still focused on civil services, but you're also getting your practice. You're securing your life, and you'll be more confident to take civil services. You will know about these exams by referring to a paper called Employment News. Employment News is published by the central government. It comes every Saturday. Buy that paper. Whatever notification is released, it's published in the Employment News. Apply if you have the eligibility, and please go ahead and take the test.
So, this practice also will help them crack the civil service exam.
Undoubtedly, you'll know time management, you'll know the questioning pattern, you'll be more confident, you'll make less mistakes in your exam.
Like you said, it builds confidence and it is always good to have a plan B.
It's always good. You should have a cushion to fall back on because you never know whether you'll be able to crack it or not.
And ma'am, coming back to the mains examination, I missed out on optional paper. So, how to choose an optional? Which subject suits better?
See, basically, what happens is a student, when he decides to prepare for civil services, I decide to prepare civil services, then I have to immediately decide about my optional. I think this approach is wrong. You should decide about the optional only after you have a clarity on your general studies, because when I read the four core areas history, polity, economy, and geography, I'll be able to understand what basic things are there in civil services. From on the basis of these four subjects, I have to make a choice of my optional. If I'm inclined towards geography, I can take geography optional. If I'm inclined towards polity, I'll either choose public administration or political science. If I'm inclined towards history, I can take history. Or if I'm inclined towards history and polity, maybe I can look at subjects like sociology. Anthropology is another subject. But for this, you need to have a basic knowledge of all the subjects. That is the reason why what I usually suggest is first start your preparation, go through the general studies for a couple of months, have a basic understanding of them. After which you'll be in a better position to understand which optional will suit you more. Then you will understand the nuances of the optional. Even if you read the syllabus and the previous question papers, you'll be able to follow what is good for me and what is not. Because you have to understand that the only choice that UPSC allows in the exam is with the optional, and you can't take a chance with it. You should not hurry up in deciding an optional. Usually, what happens is students hurry up, they think somebody tells them this is scoring, they take the optional, they read it for 6 months, and then they realize that they are not able to follow, and then they change. What about the 6 months you have invested? How can you make such a big mistake? You should not be making it. Rather, wait for 2 months, read general studies, get an idea on the basic subjects, and then you will be in a position to choose your option.
And at the same time, current affairs play a big role in mains as well, along with prelims. There are some questions that are related to current affairs surfacing the mains exam as well. So, how are students supposed to prepare for current affairs?
Current affairs is basically not a subject. It is an updation in all the subjects. This is the first thing that they have to realize, which means that unless I know the background, I'll not be able to follow the update. So, first, please focus on the basic areas: history, polity, geography, economy, out of which the most dynamic is economy, followed by polity, followed by geography, and the least dynamic is history. I actually suggest to beginners to first read polity and economy, at least the NCRTs, and then start the paper. Only then they will be able to understand what is given in the paper. Otherwise, it is difficult for them to follow what is given in the paper. And when they read the paper also, see, there are a lot of daily news analysis that comes in, and I think that this daily news analysis is really of no help, because it really does not help you in any manner unless you read the paper on your own. Somebody is doing everything for you. You just read it. You can't replicate the same thing in the question paper or answer paper, because you don't know whether the same thing will be asked or not. So what I suggest is you read the paper. If you're after that, you watch the daily news analysis to understand whether you are on the right track or not, because ultimately you have to take the exam. And when you're reading the paper, focus more on policy related news, that which the government does, not that which the politicians do. So you don't focus on the political news, you focus more on the policy related news. When you keep reading the paper over a period of time, you realize that the number of current issues are limited. They are not unlimited actually. Going against the contrary to the popular belief, they are limited. They are the same things keep repeating in the newspaper. The time that you take to read will drastically come down, but you have to be persistent. Just because I'm taking 3 hours for the newspaper initially, if I stop reading the newspaper after 15 days, it makes no sense. But despite taking 3 hours a day, I continue reading newspaper over a period around 2.5 months. Later, I will take only 1 hour, 1 hour 15 minutes to read the newspaper, because by then I've gathered information about the news. So it will be more easy for me. This is how it should be.
And when we are preparing for the examination, for example, we are preparing for current year's examination, what should be the time frame of current affairs that we need to focus on?
See, usually it is 1 year, 1 year from June to the next May if it is prelims. So we usually talk about 1 year. There is a belief that it should be 2 years, but frankly, I don't believe that you require 2 years, because then the other year, the second year, backdating, going back the second year, they will only ask those things which are prominently in news, which are carried on to the next year. So I would say 1 year is good enough, but special focus on the last 3 months before your exam, because there will be day-to-day questions. There will be simple, direct questions from recent information, recent happenings. The reason why it is asked like that is majority of them stop reading the newspaper from January or February, because they are more focused on the static part. And this is the reason why they pick up more questions, direct questions from the recent months. So focus for 1 year with a very detailed preparation of day-to-day news for the last 3-4 months should be good.
There is a lot of information overflow on social media as well. Along with current affairs, there is a lot of content related to the examination, and there are a lot of interviews that are related to the examination, and people who already appeared for the examination and topped the exams. Do you think this, looking forward to these interviews, does it show any impact on the aspirant? How does it affect them?
Basically it is like this. If you are preparing, when you start preparing, you can go through a few videos of toppers. They will help you, but you have to be in a position to understand what is important for you and what is not. Because if a topper is saying that I have studied for 16 hours a day every day, it is practically not possible. So you should be able to analyze and rationalize what is being given to you, even if it is anybody, including me. If I'm telling something to you, think about it and then use it. See, a sensible aspirant is one who is able to take all the information that comes to him, think about it, assess what is practical, assess what is applicable to him, and pick up only those suggestions. So you can see the toppers speak for the initial few days of your preparation, because that gives you a perception of the exam. But beyond that, I would not request them to go through, because after that it is about your understanding of the exam, you scrutinizing your preparation, and you changing your strategy, molding your strategy, keeping in mind your positives and negatives. As you keep going through on this journey, you realize that this is my strength, this is my weakness, this is where I'm failing. So you have to keep them in mind and accordingly improvise on your strategy. So once you start preparing, once you are into it, it is more about yourself than what the topper did. Because the logic here is simple. Just because I take a topper strategy and I start preparing accordingly, there is no guarantee that I'll crack the exam. The strategy might have worked for him, but there is no guarantee that it will work for you. In fact, civil services is an exam where one strategy will not work for everybody. It is not a benchmark at all. Everybody should have their own strategy, because everybody's strengths and weaknesses are different, and you have to strategize according to your strengths and weaknesses.
And ma'am, this exam is considered the toughest examination in our country. And the examination pattern is distributed in such a way that you need to invest one whole year if you are attempting for this exam, right from the prelims to the personal interview or the personality test. So in case we fail in any of the stages, we are again going back to prelims, which means 1 year is again a total waste. We need to again prepare from the scratch. So this actually takes a toll on the aspirant's confidence. So if you are really focused and you want to crack the examination, you need to first have perseverance. And do you think all of them will be able to keep up with
See,
it?
that's the reason I'm telling you that, when you say that it is one full year for an attempt, you also should keep your mind open to the other exams. You should be willing to take all other exams that come your way. Because once you crack one exam, your worry of what about my future tomorrow if I don't crack, that negativity goes off. That is the reason, please write more exams. First thing is that. The second thing is, it is once I fail in one attempt, I have to sit down, not brood over why I failed, but analyze why I failed. Well, where did I go wrong? Did I read all the subjects? Did I cover everything that is required for the exam? Did I do any mistake in my practice? Do I lack practice? There are a number of questions that you have to analyze. Sit down, assess your preparation. If you want, go to your teacher and take her help. Ask her, talk, discuss with her. Figure out where you were wrong, and then make the necessary changes in your preparation, and then go ahead. See, when failure hits you, it really hits you very hard. It can take a toll on your confidence. But the point there is, what about you as a person? I believe that civil services is not a test of your intelligence, it is a test of your character. It is totally a test of your character, because it tests your discipline. Are you disciplined enough or not? Do you stick to your timelines or not? It tests your perseverance, it tests your patience, it tests your analytical ability. So it's a test of your overall self. That is the reason why you have to make yourself tough. You have to look at failure as a stepping stone to success, and this can happen only when you constructively assess where you've gone wrong, rather than sitting and brooding over and saying that the coaching center was not good, the teacher did not teach properly, the paper was tough, I was well prepared but the paper was not tough. All these reasons could be right, but the most important thing is you could not crack, and somewhere there could be some mistake on your part also. See, we all people should realize that before we complain about anything, then unless you change yourself, you cannot make a change around you. When you change yourself, automatically you will see a change around you. The only thing that is in your control is yourself. So please work on yourself, work on your strategy rather than complaining and comparing. That will not help when you fail in civil services.
See, rather than sitting, sitting and studying, they also need to work on their mental health as well.
It's very important, that's the reason we usually suggest them to do yoga, meditation, spend time with your loved ones. You should not cut off from the world. Exam is important, but that's not the only thing in life. You have to have your stress busters. It is very, very important. If you don't have your stress busters, you really get frustrated. You should not take yourself to that level. And these confidence filling activities like taking other tests and all, they really help you a lot. And the most important thing is, you should know with whom you should discuss your preparation and with whom you should not discuss your preparation. Because what happens is, once you start discussing your preparation, there will be only discussion and no preparation. You'll end up only discussing. everybody will tell you one point that again starts bothering you. Your preparation gets sidetracked, and this discussion becomes the main agenda. So you should know where to cut down a discussion, to whom, with whom you should discuss, to what extent you have to discuss, and what you should not discuss.
Civil services, it has become one of the lucrative career options today, and there are so many people also appearing for the exam. And there are also institutes coming up coaching students from plus 2 level itself. Do you think that really works?
Uh, See, the very perception of civil services in people's mind is very different, Amma. I think it is it's a very false idea that they have in their mind that you have to be a bookworm to crack civil services. I look at it the other way around. You don't have to be a bookworm to crack civil services. Rather, you should be a very aware person. You should be a rational person with a lot of common sense, is what I look at it as.
And I also like to ask you, what is the right time to take it up as a take up the proper preparation?
See, usually, frankly, I get a lot of parents getting their intermediate children to me, asking me to guide them on preparation and all that. I would say that intermediate and degree first year is not the age. I can't expect a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid to start preparing for civil services. Having said that, I would ask them to rather start reading the newspaper. See, everybody will agree without any opposition, I'm sure, that newspaper reading is essential to crack a competitive exam. If that is the case, why are you not getting your child adapted to reading a newspaper? That is the first habit that you have to inculcate. Every morning or evening, ask them to read the newspaper, tell you what are the headlines in the newspaper. That is the first step towards preparing for civil services. And then the second thing that you have to do is encourage them to participate in extracurricular activities like debates, discussions. You have these extempo competition, essay writing competitions. Why don't you send your children? I don't look at it as a deviation from their studies. In fact, I look at it as a awareness building activity in them that really prepares them for civil services, that will help them to have a very good idea about the exam, about the surroundings. That is what is required for civils. Do all this till they get to their second year of graduation. From second year of graduation, they can start reading the basic books, trying to understand the syllabus, the previous year questions and all that. But their actual preparation, it is better that they start in the last year, final year of degree, when they are around 20. That is the ideal time to start the preparation.
So you mean to say right from the childhood they need to have an orientation, but the preparation should
Always,
actually
yes,
start
yes, because what will I talk about ethics to a 16, 17-year-old kid? I cannot talk to them about sexual abuse and LGBT at that age, and that is something that these aspirants should know about. There is a difference. You need that mental maturity to understand. When the exam comes with a lot of stress, is there a point in giving that stress to a kid of 17, 18 years?